Hello friends, welcome to all of you on the platform of Plutus IS. In the series of the art of answer writing, today we are once again on the topic. There was one video earlier we had discussed on the platform of YouTube, that was the development of education in British India. So something, the question is from that video. It was the half an hour session, approximately 27 minutes, and the question is right now: review the education policy of the East India Company. To what extent did it serve the imperial interest of Great Britain? So first I would suggest you that you should go and you should watch that video on this platform YouTube. Of approx 30 minutes video, you are able to completely fetch up the one of the finest marks in this particular question. So let's begin. First of all, you have to decode the question, that where is the emphasis of the question. So actually, at least this is the something suggestion for the beginner candidate, कि at least you have to read 2 to 3 times of the particular question. Once again I am going to repeat the question. Review the education policy. The first emphasis is review the education policy of the East India Company. Means they are not saying that we have to review the policy of British India, education policy of British India. The term and condition is what? Only we have to review the policy of East India Company, means up to the 1857. Is it clear? Then coming to the next half of the question, that is the to what extent did it serve the imperial interest of Great Britain? So scenario is what? If there is the education policy of British India or the East India Company, so definitely it will support the interest of the company or the British government. So we have to mention. A matter is what? There might be something your answer, and I do not disagree with your answer, but what is the matter of introspection? What is the actually the intention of discussion of the question answer series? That every candidate he is able to fetch up the 60% or the 60% plus marks. So there must be the somewhere trap where the student, a sincere student who are not able to get up the 60% or plus marks. So something I would like to clear in the UPSC, this is the one of the best criteria of your marking pattern. 60% if you get, this is the best criteria of marking pattern. So let's begin. Enjoy the entire session. If you like the video, so kindly like the button of channel of the video. So this is the scenario, para 1. In para 1, what we have to do? We have to put a brief introduction regarding the beginning of education policy in British India. So something in the introduction segment you have to mention that by the Battle of Plassey, finally the East India Company, they successfully make the political control over India, and then after this was the expansion of empire in North and South India, and British government, after losing America by American Revolution, they are making more emphasis to establish their government in India for a long term, and the education policy of British East India Company, it was in favor to fulfill or achieve that dream. Approx I feel this is the introduction of the around 40 words, and in that introduction you are able to something give the what were the aims and objective of the British education policy. Clear hai? Coming to the next paragraph. In the next paragraph, para 2, you have to mention background of British education policy, or the historical background of the British education policy. In that segment, you have to mention that first time in 1781, Calcutta Madrasa was established. Then after 10 years, a Sanskrit college was established in Varanasi or in Banaras, and in 1800 Fort William College was established by Lord Wellesley, and this was the beginning of the education system in British India. Actually, once again we should move on the question. The question is the review the education policy of East India Company. From where the education policy it started, we are in this paragraph portraying the background, and what you have to do, unnecessary you have not to enlarge the paragraph. By putting comma you have to mention that this is the historical background of the beginning of the education policy of East India Company. We have to come in para 3. So in para 3, we have to mention the first policy. It was the Act of 1813, and by the Act of 1813, what they did, so actually this was they granted rupees 1 lakh. They granted rupees 1 lakh for the promotion of education of entire India. Clear? Question is review the education policy. अब यहीं से review का खेल जो है वो शुरू होता है कि they granted 1 lakh rupees for the promotion of education of entire British India, and what it led to, it led Anglicist versus Orientalist controversy. So it led the Anglicist and Orientalist controversy. Then what we have to mention? So we have to mention the Anglicist, they wanted the medium of education should be in English, and the Orientalists, they wanted the medium of education, it should be in vernacular language. Okay, in vernacular language. So matter is what? कि from here actually what was the objective of the Anglicist and what was the objective of the Orientalist. Actually this is the second half of the question right now. Review the education policy of East India Company. To what extent did it serve the imperial interest of Great Britain? Imperial interest of Great Britain. Right now in answer the second half of the question, it is going to be delineate. It is going to be delineate. So we have to mention the objective. So what was the objective of the Anglicist? So actually Anglicist they wanted to create brown Indians. Actually what was the objective of the Anglicist right now? This is the second half of the question ki how they are fulfilling the interest of the British East India Company. So actually the Anglicist they wanted to create a group of brown Indians, who were in color, in caste, they were Indians, but on thinking level, on their psychological level, actually they used to be a huge market for the company. So the Anglicist view, they wanted to create a huge market for the capitalist class of Britain. So this was the something view of the Anglicist, and finally what happened? Orientalists they wanted the medium of the education, it should be in the vernacular language. Finally what happens? Finally this is the Anglicist, they were the victorious, and in 1835 English education was introduced. So this was the medium of language, it was the English education. Right now what was the debate? The debate was that ki in only 1 lakh rupees how we will be able to promote the English education in India. So this was the next challenge, and right now it is the infiltration theory. So what is the infiltration theory? So according to the infiltration theory, it was decided that in 1 lakh rupees, we have to only promote the higher education of India, and the Indians who will be in English education, who will get the higher education in English language, right now from them, by filtering the English education, it will reach to the bottom section of society, to the bottom section of rural and urban areas. Means what? One person who will be inculcated in English education in higher level, then when he will go to his rural areas or in urban areas, then he will be inspired with the Western culture, he will be wearing suit, boot and tie, and then after he will be fond of to use the English language. Then the people or the society around him, they will be inspired, and they will also try to follow the Western costumes, Western garments and the English education. So this is what? This is the infiltration theory. Then after the question is the up to the East India Company, means ki we have to mention Charles Wood dispatch. After the infiltration theory, we are coming the Charles Wood, or this is called the Wood dispatch. Wood dispatch. So Wood dispatch, it was in 1854. It was formed to make the suggestion for the development of education in British India, and Wood, he suggested that on behalf of the London University, there should be the foundation of 3 university in 3 presidency of India, in Bengal, Bombay and Madras, and finally it happens in the later years 1857, 3 university were established. Clear hai? So actually what, this is the complete explanation of the review of the education policy under the East India Company up to the 1854. To what extent did it serve the imperial interest of Great Britain? So we have to come on the next para. In para 4, in para 4, we have to discuss to what extent, how in a finest way we have to portray the answer. So to what extent, this is the broader term. So we have to mention that in the economic context, in economic sphere, in social sphere, in social sphere, and in administrative, political administrative sphere, finally in cultural sphere, in cultural sphere. In economic sphere, earlier I mentioned that it supported the capitalist policy of the Britain. Actually they wanted to create a huge market for the various company of Britain, and they wanted to create the Indians who are educated in the English education. Actually what, they will be the inspired with the Western influence, and they will give the priority of the Western culture, and they will wear the Western costume, they will follow the Western practices. So actually overall it will be the more consumption of the British goods in India, and finally it will be in favor, economically it will be favor to the British government. Coming to the, in the social sphere, they wanted to leave the impact, leave the Western impact over Indian society, and they change the curriculum. Right now the English is the medium of education, and by that English education they change the curriculum, and right now the Indians are not given the drama of the Kalidas, Malvikagnimitram, Raghuvansam. The Indians, they have given in their curriculum Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, and basically it was the impact over Indian society, So this is what finally, if the Indians, they are following the trend of the Romeo or the trend of the Juliet, means what? This is the impact of the Western influence over the Indian society. So finally this is in favor of East India Company. Coming to the political administrative sphere, the Indian employee, they were in favor to the Indian employee, they were in favor to East India Company. Why? They were 4 to 5 times cheaper rather than an European employee. So something, what was the interest it fulfilled? So they got, by the English education, they got the a group of Indians who were feasible, who were right now something the alternate for the company, and finally it was fulfilling the interest. They were the cheaper, that's why they were fulfilling the interest of East India Company. In cultural sphere is what? The education policy, it is promoting the Western culture, it is promoting the Western music in context of, if there is a novel or there is a drama, so there, if there is any mentioning of the music or the dance, so this is not the mentioning of the classical dance of the India or the classical music of the India. Actually, this is the mentioning of the Indo-Gothic form of the architecture. It is the mentioning of the rock, judge and such kind of the musical instruments. So finally, this is what the interest of the Britishers. So actually, this is the interest ki they are fulfilling their interest to make the expansion of the Western influence. So that's all in that question. If you are apart from that, you have to put one more paragraph, that is the para 5, and in the para 5 you have to conclude the answer with a conclusion, positive conclusion ki finally this was the British policy by the English education, they wanted to fulfill the British interest, but it led to the rise of the middle class intelligentsia, and finally this middle class intelligentsia, it proved in favor of rise of national movement in India. This is the something the creative way of the conclusion. So my dear students, what is the scenario ki in around 15 to 20 minutes, I feel ki finally we are able to discuss the all the dimension of the question. What was the question? Review the education policy. This was the first half. Emphasis was only on the East India Company and how did it serve the interest of the imperial power of Great Britain. That's all. If you mention all the dimension right now, you can expect that you are going to fetch up the 60% plus marks in that particular question. So this all is mentioned in the last video of the YouTube. Right now, once again, the question is what? The spirit of the question is same. I am going to also mention one more question related to the education policy. The spirit of the question is same, but only the words are changed. So you will also get the answer of this particular question of that 27-minute video, and this is what, this is the art of answer writing. So coming to the next question, अगला question क्या है? The next question, this is the what was Anglicist versus Orientalist controversy about how was it resolved with what result? Means ki if you cover the history segment thoroughly, the questions are almost the same with the change words. Question is what was the Anglicist Orientalist controversy? The first half of the question, this is the Anglicist Orientalist controversy. How was it resolved with what result? So you have to come para 1 with the introduction. We have to skip the background of the British, means ki in that answer we have to skip the para 2. This is the art of answer writing. We have to direct come on the para 3, means ki in that second answer it will be the para 2, and directly we have to mention that ki Act of 1830 it granted 1 lakh rupees for the development of education. It led to the Anglicist Orientalist debate. What was the Anglicist? They wanted to make the medium of education, it should be in English. Why? Because it will be in favor of British interest. It will create a huge market in India, and the Orientalists actually they wanted to get the support, emotional support of the Indians by promoting the education in their vernacular language. ठीक है, so this was the debate, but finally the British government approved which policy. So they approved the Anglicist policy because it was fulfilling more the interest of the British imperial policy. So something, this was the Orientalists who were the victorious, but later this was the debate कि how we will be able to make. तो ये इन्फिल्ट्रेशन थ्योरी को आपको मेंशन करना है, और इन्फिल्ट्रेशन थ्योरी में क्या आउटकम आता है कि हायर एजुकेशंस को हम लोग बस केवल इंग्लिश में एजुकेशन देंगे, वहां से फिल्टर होकर के ये बॉटम सेक्शन ऑफ द सोसाइटी तक पहुंच जाएगा. यहां तक आकर के क्या होगा कि इट रिजॉल्व्ड विद व्हाट रिजल्ट्स. हाउ वाज इट रिजॉल्व्ड विद व्हाट रिजल्ट? इन्फिल्ट्रेशन थ्योरी के थ्रू ये रिजॉल्व हो गया, एंड देन आफ्टर रिजल्ट क्या था कि हायर एजुकेशंस को ही हम लोग इंग्लिश में देंगे, बॉटम सेक्शन तक वहां पे फिल्टर होकर के पहुंच जाएगा. वीडियो कैसा लगा आप लोगों को जरूर कमेंट बॉक्स में बताइएगा. समथिंग, दिस इज द सीरीज, इट विल बी कंटिन्यूड इन द later videos also. What you have to do, you have to put the like button, and those candidates who are interested in our history optional subject, they should contact the given number in the description box. Okay friends, let's meet in the next video with the same valuable information and with the same valuable art of answer writing series. Till then, all the best. Thank you.